sharpened the education marketing focus at Apple and defined the online marketing strategy for a growing company called Nike. Or it was taking a small regional craft beer named Widmer and rolling them out nationwide in bottles for the first time ever. In choosing to work with nimbler, faster-moving companies, I realized it was not about me or my ego. I thrived on the notion of seeing a market opportunity and of moving fast to win big. And I loved working with people who were not afraid to take measured risks in an attempt to win big. I've worked with some great companies, both large and small. Do you know what made them great beyond inspirational leadership and usually an amazing culture? It was a powerful sense that they had a meaningful purpose and a destiny, but that in order to fulfill that destiny, they had to move fast. They recognized that moving too slowly would cost them in terms of either market share or long-term survival. In other words, their core belief was that if they did not move fast, they would ultimately fail. Let me give you some examples of what the lean model framework looks like in action. In the early 1990s, I was tasked with helping lead a team working with a small startup called McAfee. The company made antivirus software, but it was a very small player in a marketplace dominated by larger software companies. As we reviewed potential strategies, we noticed that corporate IT managers routinely looked for additional information or support on bulletin board systems, BBS. These open computer networks allowed people to connect and share information and software solutions. Since this startup could not afford to package or distribute its software through the traditional distribution channels, we recommended they upload their software to the BBS networks, distribute the software for free for 30 days, then ask the companies to pay for it after it had been used by their IT employees. This was amazingly successful, and it created a company with more than $2 billion in revenue today. More important, the company's business model and method of distribution changed the way software could be distributed and purchased. There was another opportunity to help figure out a company's business model back in the early internet days. We met with the Yahoo founders when they were still on Stanford's campus, running the early version of Yahoo's website on the university's servers. That was a lean startup. Honestly, we really could not figure out the business model at the time, though they were starting to get a lot of website traffic. One thing we did notice was that the website was not well designed from a user interface point of view. Not only was the company's branding weak, it was almost impossible to find something quickly, as the website was using way too many links and had poor navigation design. Yahoo did not have much money at the time, and they asked us if we would help them in exchange for some equity. We did. We redesigned the user interface and overhauled the website design. During the next 6 weeks, we created a more powerful, simpler user interface that was more logical and better ordered. But then, everyone had an opinion about the new design versus the old design, and everyone was nervous. We convinced the founders to let the customers decide. So, alternating website visitors were served up the new version of the website. Then the next time they visited the website, they received the old version of the website. They were asked to vote on which website design was easier to navigate, and more than 50,000 website visitors voted in the first 72 hours. The majority voted for the new design, much to the founders' dismay. So we launched the new website, and Yahoo took off. We then began refining the Yahoo business model by adding the search function and eventually an advertising model. This notion of testing products with customers and getting feedback is critical. I call it customer truth. Customers are not always right, but they are never wrong. In the mid-1990s, I had probably my most memorable experience reflecting the mentality of the lean model framework. The founder-entrepreneur of a startup I'd never heard of called our agency office in Portland, Oregon, in search of a marketing agency and strategic partner to help him grow the business. He had launched a somewhat crude website about 6 months earlier, a minimally viable product, and it was gaining some traction with customers. So my creative director and I agreed to go to the meeting, which was about 3 hours away. Driving in what turned out to be a downpour, just terrible weather, I was regretting my decision. When my creative director and I arrived at the company's location in a seedy part of Seattle, in a run-down warehouse district, my instincts were telling me to leave. We entered the warehouse. There were no real offices, just employees all together in one large room. Water was dripping from the leaky roof. A dog wandered by. The desks were doors mounted on 2x4s. It sure looked like no one was spending money on anything. Then we met the founder. He brought us up to date on the past 6 months and told us what he needed from us, which was a lot. The website and daily operations were working. Orders were coming in every day.